everyone, so let's go ahead and talk about what is due this Saturday. So we are working on a zombie apocalypse project, if you didn't already know, and your quarantine report is actually due this Saturday. So if you were wondering what is due or how we're going to grade it, well, this rubric was attached to the PDF that you all received, that is in your assignment. So we're going to look if your equations are correct, your intersection points were graphed correctly, if you knew where those are, if you were able to write your inequalities correctly, and that we're able to see all of the work when you use the substitution method on your lines, which we're going to do today. So these are the possible points that go along with the different categories. So if you have any doubts about anything in your quarantine report, feel free to email us or put a private comment in the assignment. That way we can look over your lines and dissolve any doubts that you may have. Okay, so like I said, your project is due on Saturday, and this is what we are looking for. So for sure, we want your 3 buildings, where they are. We want your slopes, your intercepts, and the equation of your lines. And this part right here is where they intersect, right? So on your map, you're gonna find the points where they intersect. And those are going to be the points that you write down. 4.1, right now we're going to work on that, but we're going to take 2 of these equations. We're going to do the substitution method, and hopefully we'll get our intersection points or solutions. We're going to do that twice right now. We're also going to write down our inequalities if you wrote them down and if they're correct. For number 6, for this one, basically what you're doing is you're looking in your solution area and you're picking 3 points and you're giving us the coordinates of those points. So for example, on my map, my solution is right in here in this triangle, remember? So our solution is inside of the triangle. And I picked the outlook point from Trans Mountain, Walmart, and Cohen Stadium. So I found the coordinate points for each of those locations, and that is what I wrote down on my paper. Okay, so for number 7, these are points that are not solutions on your graph, right? So anywhere outside of that triangle. So you're gonna pick 3 points and again find the coordinates of those points. So on my map, I picked, let me see if I can find them. Okay, over here I picked the Lowe's, the home improvement store. I picked a park and a Wells Fargo, right? So all of these points are outside of my solution. So remember, my solution is inside of my triangle. Okay, so once you have that, the last part is this part up here. So this is the part where you can get as creative as you want. So you're going to be writing about where you're living, where your community is, what kind of materials do you have, how easily are they accessible, what is the environment like, are there other people living there with you? You can be as descriptive and as creative as you want. Just tell us your story. How did it start? Where are you? Do you like it? Do you not? Just let us know how you're surviving. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into that substitution part. So like I said, for 4.1, we're going to take 2 of these lines. We're going to do the substitution method, right? So that video you should have seen yesterday on Friday. And then you're going to hopefully get our points. Because remember, when we are solving them algebraically, we're solving for that intersection of where they cross, right? So that's our solution. So we're getting our lines and we're solving them for the intersection, and it should match up with the intersections that we graphed ourselves. So let's go ahead and see how that works. So I'm going to get a sheet of paper, and I'm going to turn the camera just a little because I write sideways. I don't know why, but I write sideways. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my equation number 2 and my equation number 3, and I'm going to write them on my paper. So equation 2 is y equals negative x plus 4, and my equation number 3 is y equals 1/2 x plus 4. Okay, so if you want to try it on your own with your equations, you are free to do so. If you don't have any idea what you're doing, that's okay. We're going to do it together. And hopefully, once you see my example, you'll be able to mimic that on your own. Okay, so remember, the first thing we want to do is solve for a variable, but actually, we already have a variable that is solved for. Both of them are solved for a variable, and that variable is y. So we're saying y is something. Okay, so I'm just going to take my first equation, and I'm just going to write it out here and put number 1, because that variable is already solved for. So I'm just numbering my steps so I can keep things consistent. Okay, so now I'm going to substitute that variable. So I am going to take all of this and plug it in to my third equation. So what I'm going to do is just write out that third equation just so that my brain can see where I am substituting things in. And I'm going to go ahead and substitute. So instead of writing y, I'm going to write negative x plus 4. And the rest is going to stay the same. So this equals 1/2 x plus 4. Okay, so now I know this part is a little different from the video, but our goal is to get all the x's to one side and all the numbers to the other. Okay, so I'm going to start by subtracting 4 on both sides. And once I do that, 4 minus 4 will give me 0, so I'm just left with my negative x. And my 1/2 x comes down, and 4 minus 4 is, well, look at that, that's 0. Nice. Okay, so next, I can do either one, so I'm going to move this x over because it seems easier. So plus x, x minus x is going to give me 0. And over on this side, 1/2 plus x is going to give me 1.5x, right? Because there's an imaginary 1 in here, and 1 plus 1/2 is 1.5. So the last step is to isolate my x, so I'm going to divide by that, 1.5. To get rid of that, this gives me 1. And I'm just left with x is equal to 0. Okay, so that is my first solution. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this 0 and I'm going to substitute it into any of these two equations. Personally, the first one seems like it would be easier. So I'm going to go ahead and write, instead of writing x, I'm just going to go ahead and write 0. But everything else stays the same. Okay, once I simplify this, I'm going to get 0 plus 4 is just going to give me 4. So I have y equals 4. So actually, my solution that I get is 0, 4. And let's see how correct my graph was. So if I look at my original intersection point, it's right there, 0, 4. Okay, pretty cool, right? Blew your mind. Okay, so we're gonna do that one more time. If you got it and you're okay, go ahead and skip this part. But if you want to see me do one more example, let's go ahead and do one more example. Okay, let me just fold my paper so that I have, okay, so I can show you there. So this time I am going to get this top one, and I'll just get my middle one again because that one seems easier. So I'm just gonna rewrite them. I'm gonna use equation 1, which is y equals negative 1/3 x minus 1. And I'm gonna use equation 2, which is y equals negative x plus 4. Okay, so again, we are going to solve for a variable, but it's already solved for, right? So just to keep consistent, I'm gonna say my first step already done. Bam. Okay, so for my second step, I'm gonna substitute. So I'm gonna take all of this and I am going to substitute it in for my y. Okay, so I'm going to write my equation 1 again. This time I'm going to substitute this in for my y. So instead of y, I'm going to write negative x plus 4. And the rest stays the same. This is negative 1/3x minus 1. Okay, so again, I have to get my x's on one side and my my numbers to the other side. So I'm gonna go ahead and start with this 1/3x and move it right over here. So that way, when I subtract 1/3 plus 1/3, when I add those, that's gonna give me 0, so I'm just left with negative 1 equals, and I have my 4 and plus, and over here, remember there's an invisible 1 in front of there. So actually, I'm going to go ahead and write this on the side. So I have negative 1 plus 1/3. So remember, before we add fractions, we have to have a common denominator. So my common denominator is going to be 3. So I'm going to multiply the bottom by 3 and the top by 3. And this is going to give me negative 3/3 plus 1/3. If you're confused on how I got that, please let me know. Okay, so once I add these, negative 3 plus 1 is going to give me negative 2. And my denominator stays the same. Okay, so up here I'm going to write negative 2/3x. Okay, so now I have to move that 4 over. So I'm going to subtract 4, and I'm going to get 4 minus 4 will give me 0. So I'm just left with negative 2/3x equals negative 5. Okay, so right here, my negative 2/3 is being multiplied by my x. So in order to move it over, I have to divide. So I'm going to divide by negative 2/3. If I do it to one side, I have to do it to the other. Okay, so there's a couple of ways to clean this up. Well, I know for sure this will give me 1, so I'm just left with x. So over here, I have a whole big mess. So there's a couple of ways to do that. I know that a lot of you have done what you call KFC. So keep flip change, right? So that you're gonna keep the top. You're going to flip your denominator, and you're going to change from division to multiplication. There's another way to do extremes over means. So we'll just do both ways. That way you can see which way suits you best. So keep change flip. I'm going to do a -5 times, and I'm going to flip my denominator. So -3/2. Okay. Okay, so let's keep going and see where it takes us. Okay, once I clean this up, I'm going to get -5 times -3 is 15/2, right? Because this is over 1, and when we multiply fractions, we multiply straight across. So this is actually equivalent to 7.5. Okay, so that's one way to do that. Let's go ahead and look over another way to clean up this fraction, right? So I'm just going to put a line. I'm going to say, let's go ahead and rewrite this. So instead of rewriting, so when I rewrite it, I'm going to write 5 as a fraction. And I'm going to do extremes over means. So that means that I'm going to multiply the extreme tops of my numbers, and I'm going to multiply the middles of my numbers, right? Because mean is a statistic word for middle. Okay, so average, middle. Okay, so I'm going to multiply -5 times -3, and that's going to give me 15. And 2 times 1 is 2, which you see, it gives you the same thing. So whichever way is more comfortable for you, go for it. Okay, so now I have what my x is equal to. Let's find what my y is. So I'm going to get one of my equations and solve for y. I'm going to use my second one because that seems like it's easier. Okay, so I have y equals, and remember, instead of writing x, I'm going to write 7.5. And the rest stays the same, plus 4. Okay, so I'm going to clean my parentheses up a little. And this is going to become -7.5 plus 4. And when I add -7.5 plus 4, I am going to get -3.5. Okay, so my actual solution set is 7.5 for x and -3.5 for y. So let me see how accurate I was when I was graphing. And if you see, this one kind of matches up here. I was off by 0.5. So because my graph was done by hand and the units might have been spaced out a little uneven, it came out just a little off. But as you can see, the main idea is still there. I did get pretty dang close. So that is what you will be doing for 4.1. And remember, you are going to go ahead and turn in the work that you do for 4.1. So I'm going to put 4.1 here. Okay, so this work you will be turning in with your completed blueprint. So you're going to do all of these, including number 8. So don't forget about number 8. So you're going to turn in the blueprint, you're going to turn in your substitution work, and you're going to turn in your map with all your points labeled. Okay, your intersections, everything needs to be labeled. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask us, and we will help you with whatever we can. All right, have a good weekend.